Very important couple of limitations in this list. 30 greatest living American songwriters. Okay, they have to be living, they have to be American, and they have to be great. Thought it would be fun to come on here and basically take some suggestions from you guys on who you think should be on the list, and just kind of like make some assessments on who actually got through. And they have to be, and they have to be 30. I don't think they're 30 years old. I don't think Jay-Z is 30 years old. Unfortunately, if he was, he would have much longer to live. But, we're all aging. We're all getting older. I wish I was 30 years old, but I'm not. I'm not 30 years old. Jay-Z's not 30 years old anymore. Even Taylor Swift is not 30 years old anymore. 30 is a very fleeting time in your life. You will find out if you ever happen to reach it. You're only 30 for a year, believe it or not. 30 great songwriting Americans. Let's make an assessment on the list, make some calls. Starting off with number 1, Jay-Z. I think Jay-Z is a worthy inclusion to the list. I feel like he kind of like changed the face of hip hop and mainstreamed it in a way that no artist of his generation did. And when I say that, I don't mean sort of like in a way that like, Vanilla Ice did, where he was just like purely appealing to white people. I mean, kind of like bringing hip hop to the mainstream, but still, kind of like staying true to its roots. And that happened, of course, due to a lot of marketing and industry stuff. But mostly I would attribute it to Jay's lyricism and songwriting. I feel like the hits and the records, the consistency of those albums, especially the best ones, Blueprint, Debut, obviously a Black Album too. I feel like that all speaks for itself. So, I feel like Jay-Z is a worthy and sensible inclusion. These are apparently unranked, completely unranked list. All right, moving on from there. Young Thug, second listing, but again, not ranked. Second listing on the list as it's presented on Twitter, of course. Look, you guys can fight with me in the comments. I don't know if Young Thug is as interesting or as necessary an inclusion. Maybe Young Thug is a choice I would feel a bit kind of safer on, feel a bit more sensible on if we were to see like 10 years down the road how his like catalog is holding up. But, creatively speaking, he's already been falling off for the past several years. His latest record is not good at all. A lot of his highest highs commercially are, we're just going to have to wait and see how much of that kind of like goes out with the tide of the time period that he was relevant within. Meanwhile, one of his biggest influences, Lil Wayne, I feel like it had bigger peak moments, more memorable songs and hits. And he's not listed on this list at all. I feel like Wayne's greatest sin is that he's done a horrible job of like maintaining his legacy, unfortunately. And a lot of his recent records were not, obviously very good. I just feel like Young Thug is a really weird inclusion, considering that we only have 30 spots and there are some like, I would say some kind of deafening non-inclusions here that are a little distracting. Kendrick Lamar at number 3. You could say it's a Kendrick bias, but I would say yes. I don't disagree that Kendrick should be on this list. I feel like he has proven himself on many an occasion to be one of the greatest songwriters of his generation, regardless of genre. The popularity of him, the artistry of him transcends genre, transcends culture. That's kind of like been proven, and I feel like he's made numerous records which are going to withstand the test of time and have already sort of like become modern classics in a lot of circles. Even records like T-Pap topping, the greatest albums of all time list on Rate Your Music these days. So I feel like Kendrick, I shouldn't really need to explain Kendrick to you guys. I think that's already happened with me, with other people. Now, Outkast as a songwriting duo, we're just treating them like one songwriter. But fine. You could also attribute some of their magic to Dungeon Family too. It's like kind of weird to attribute one single spot to like Outkast, but like, I get it. They kind of put the South on the map and had this sort of like, approach to that sort of region in rap music that, again, not only just like put it on the map, but had a broad pop appeal too. And I think like kind of expanded the artistic and musical vocabulary for that region. And, I again, they have a solid catalog, one of the most solid catalogs in hip hop, point blank period. You can't really mess with it. It is like bulletproof consistent for the most part. T-Pab is straight poop music. No, it's you'd have to make a more compelling case for that. I think most people would disagree. Missy Elliott, yes, super creative, game changer. Numerous songs that have withstood the test of time, super influential, super creative, super enigmatic, and unique. Don't really deny Missy's pen game and her ear for a hit, along with Timbaland too. Mariah Carey, the hits speak for themselves, so there's not really any sort of like surprise there with her inclusion. Some of the biggest songs of the past 20 plus years, I feel like her name kind of just like makes complete sense here. The Dream, given all of his work with like Beyonce and the like, I feel like is a pretty sensible inclusion in this list. That only sort of like makes sense. Robert Plant is alive, isn't he? This has to be an American list. They have to be living and they have to be American, so you can't like name PJ Harvey or whatever, if this was like now, did Mariah write all of her music? No, Mariah has co-written a fair amount of her music, but with that being said, she's not the only person on this list who has co-written music. Like Lana Del Rey has co-written a lot of music. Dolly Parton has co-written a ton of music. If this was like a broader list and we could include someone like a Kate Bush, it's actually kind of rare that you reach the sort of super influential commercial peaks that someone like, Kate does. And you're literally writing all your shit. And on top of it, like when she got to a certain point in her catalog, you're producing all your shit too. Like that's such an incredible rarity. Bad Bunny, Puerto Rico represent. I feel like people, I think his inclusion, again, given his global success, makes sense and is, symbolically savvy, given just how much of I think, we live in times that are very ignorant toward, Puerto Rico's connection to America and Puerto Rican culture broadly. And it's great that Bad Bunny, continues to shine a light on it. Babyface, please freaking remind me of Babyface's catalog as a songwriter. I know there are some names deeper into the list that have like Motown cred, be it either Valerie Simpson, Brian and Eddie Holland. And when it comes to like that classic Motown stuff, that shit is bulletproof. You can't really sort of like go toe to toe with a lot of the songwriters from that point in time. It's worked with Usher. I knew he had a lot of modern R&B credits. Put on TLC, Usher, Tony Braxton, although that's just industry stuff. Okay, so obviously Babyface, I would say, like has some incredibly deep roots and significant roots when it comes to like popular R&B music, modern R&B music, but has also worked with Whitney Houston too. Madonna as well, apparently. So makes sense. And Madonna is somebody who is straight up not on this list as well. She has co-writer credits on nearly all her shit. And on top of it, again, like she wouldn't be the only person on this list that has co-writer credits. Where is James Ferraro, With that being said, Stevie Wonder, of course. Like, how can we doubt Stevie's pen game? Guy is like a golden songwriter and performer. Like, Stevie isn't even a conversation. Nile Rodgers is also not even close to a conversation, just like an automatic grandfathered in inclusion. The man's writing and guitar playing changed the face of modern popular sort of like funk music and everything like that. And has just been on so many incredible collaborations and, co-writer credits over the years. No Jack Antonoff is actually a valid question considering how many super influential. I mean, Taylor Swift is in the mix on this one, and I feel like the people who crafted the list are probably seeing like, well, he did help Taylor write a lot of that stuff, so maybe it would be redundant by having Jack on here as well. As we get deeper into the list, you're going to see there are, I would say, some names that make the list and some that don't. and Billy Joel is a great example, that I feel like the names that don't make the list, the ones that get cut out, I feel like the reason they get cut out is because they're like, oh, well, there's this like songwriter that sort of like exists in a similar lane, so we like didn't end up mentioning them or something, you know. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who, let me just double check over here. Okay, yeah, that's right. They've worked on a bunch of Janet material, which, you know, of course makes sense. And Janet being one of the best pop artists of the past several decades, Prince as well, Usher, Patti LaBelle. So the credits run super deep. Oh yeah, and they worked with the Human League too. That's right. So the versatility between Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis is incredible. Smokey Robinson, not even a question. Honestly, impressive that Smokey is still kicking to this day to be on this list. Is Smokey not the oldest person on this list? I mean, I would have to double check. I don't know the ages of everyone here off the top of my head. But Smokey has to be like the oldest person on this list. Connor Oberst, no. In fact, I would say generally the indie scene is pretty much like ignored. And no metal either. Then they have Lionel Richie. Lionel Richie is a maybe for me. Taylor Swift, I feel like, is here just for like, you know, sheer numbers and power in the music industry. You know, there's going to be a lot of people who that take pisses off. So be it. It's fine. After that, we have Lana Del Rey, whose songwriting I think has improved greatly in recent years. But like, you know, as much as I am unenthused about seeing Taylor on this list, I find Lana more interesting as a songwriter. I think, you know, she has like a world building style that is more specific to her. And if it wasn't so good, I don't think Taylor Swift would have ripped it off numerous times. Yeah, Neil Young is also Canadian, so Neil can't make it on the list. Neil is famously Canadian. You know, see, here's the thing. Joni Mitchell is Canadian, but spiritually American. But Neil Young is Canadian, but he's also spiritually Canadian. He feels Canadian, you know. He's rootin' tootin' Canadian. But yeah, no Tori Amos on this list either, which is like kind of nutty, given her vocal talent, given her piano chops, given the incredibly consistent and impressive dynamic songwriting and discography she has formed over the years. But Pharrell actually is like a really good point in my opinion, though maybe most people probably consider him more of a producer, but he has produced and kind of like helped craft in a significant way some incredible hits over the years. Like, why is there not even like a whiff of Pharrell on this thing? Going deeper, we have Bob Dylan, self-explanatory, arguably top 10 songwriters all time, much less American and alive. Bruce Springsteen, I would say, is at least like top 15 songwriters, dead or alive, global. Paul Simon is also another like songwriting all-timer. Carole King isn't viewed quite as much to be because she doesn't have like the same kind of like commercial solo catalog, but when you dig into the songs she's written for other artists and how huge those tracks were, she is also somebody not to be fucked with at all. Now, Willie Nelson is one of a handful of country inclusions on this list that I'll like speed into a little bit, because we also have Josh Osborne, who I don't think should be here in this list in the same breath as Willie Nelson. I know he's written a lot of country hits, but much of it, in my opinion, outside of like some cool stuff he's done with Casey Musgraves, is a lot of like modern radio country slop. Not good songs, in my opinion. Brandy Clark, I feel like, is also, you know, a modern country songwriter with a lot of commercial credits, but I think her writing is a lot more interesting. With that being said, though, we have Diane Warren, which she's written a lot of hits. Personally, they're not some of my favorite songs. I feel like Diane Warren has a tendency to write radio tunes that I get sick of really fast. They do well commercially, but I usually get sick of them very fast, you know, whether it's I don't want to miss a thing or something else. But she writes big tunes, though. And, you know, the artists who she works with like really blow up off of them. So I can't really hate too much. Romeo Santos is a guy who's been active in the Latin scene for a long time, bachata bangers and all that. And, you know, I sort of like get the Latin inclusions. I feel like that's fair where they can fit in. Then we have Brian and Eddie Holland, Valerie Simpson, like I said earlier, both of whom have like big Motown creds from back in the day. And when it comes to like that era of songwriting and how it defined, you know, not just soul music, but popular music in general, you can't really mess with it. It's like, it's really the foundation on which everything that we listen to today lays as far as like popular music. Stephen Merritt is like the one name who's like, you know, truly indie scene adjacent on this one. And if you are just going to go with like simply one songwriter, one artist, I guess, from that world, Stephen is not a bad pick at all. Super prolific, very amazing lyrics, incredible tunes that have been kind of like covered and repeated and, you know, versionized the world over. I think, you know, Magnetic Fields are like low key one of the more ripped off artists to ever come out of the indie scene of all time, and a super creative guy all around who still, you know, puts out interesting work to this day. And that's the list. I mean, as far as some names that I had off the top of my head that sort of like struck me again when going over this. No Sufjan Stevens, which I feel like Sufjan really comes from like that legacy that Paul Simon already kind of like laid down, but still, I feel like there's and I know that there's like a lot of music critics and cultural commentators who feel that way, but Mr. Stevens has very much like kind of blossomed into his own flower and has a legacy that is all his own that, you know, is worthy of, I think, a mention on this list, especially given how many amazing albums he's dropped over the years. Again, no Tori Amos, no Tom Waits, which I feel like is a very weird non-inclusion here. We didn't get a Madonna shout out. We have people who worked with Janet on songwriting, but not Janet herself. No David Byrne. Also, as far as like, you know, on the hip hop front, I find it kind of surprising that there's like no Q-Tip here. No Mos Def. I feel like Mos Def needed a sort of like a longer, sort of like wider catalog. I feel like to sort of like stand up to a Jay-Z or even a Nas, who probably would have gotten like first dibs on a list like this. Wise Blood is definitely a very interesting modern pick. If we were including more modern picks, you could also say like Adrian Lenker. And again, this does have to be a list of Americans, and it does have to be a list of living songwriters. So that would explain, you know, the non-inclusion of anybody over from the UK that anybody might be throwing in there. But again, no Billy Joel is like kind of crazy, honestly. He's written so many incredible pop tunes that are just like, frankly, bulletproof. I know that maybe, you know, he wouldn't be thought of first order for a list like this because Billy Joel isn't perceived to be like as cool as like a, you know, a Bruce Springsteen. But Billy Joel, in my opinion, is in the same league of quality and consistency as like Springsteen is. You know, maybe not like, no, Billy Joel had a pretty varied career. Kanye, I feel like famously has other people writing his stuff most of the time. And I feel like when there is nobody there to write for him, what you get is Bully, and Bully is not a very well-written album. And yeah, you know, Tom MacDonald is Canadian. It's true. I'm just breaking balls. I know Tom MacDonald is Canadian. Tom MacDonald is another Canadian who's spiritually American, but he's like spiritually the worst and dumbest kind of American. Whereas like, you know, Joni Mitchell is spiritually like a, you know, a hippie dippy-ish kind of California woman. But again, like I feel like if I think they could have like used at least like one metal nod and thrown out like a Metallica shout out. I feel like that, you know, sort of like makes sense to me. No Jane Remover is crazy. Todd Rundgren is, you know, probably a fair argument for a list like this. Honestly, Todd's not a bad shout out. People will say that Taylor Swift is a lyrical genius, and then they hear, "Did you girl boss too close to the sun and touch me while your bros play GTA?" Like, son, I'm crying. I know. I feel like Taylor Swift's songwriting, the bright pockets of it that there have not really been in recent years. Getting finger banged while your boyfriend's dudes play Grand Theft Auto is like obviously not a high point in her catalog as far as like painting a picture. Isn't Joanna Newsom American, or is she just another person who's spiritually American? Or does Joanna Newsom come from like, you know, a different like dimension or something, or like you know, from some kind of like fjord in another country? It's cool that Fiona Apple's in the mix, and it's awesome that Lucinda Williams is in the mix, because I do think when it comes to like, you know, modern, more alternative country sounds, like she's pretty great. And she has some really nice classic records under her belt as well, if you guys dig in and take the time to listen. Yeah, where's the Michael Gira inclusion? Where's the Jarbo inclusion? Maybe there should be Julian Casablancas. I mean, as far if we were going to include somebody else from the indie scene, I would definitely say again, Sufjan, Joanna, Julian, you could argue, or if you want to do it Outkast style, you can, since Outkast are listed as one person, you could just say The Strokes. I feel like New York Times were definitely probably like, it's probably likely they saw Outkast and are like, yeah, Outkast is just a guy. Who's your favorite rap guy? Oh, Outkast. Yes, Outkast is my favorite rapper. He has two distinctly different voices and flows, and he's so versatile and cool. Jonathan Outkast is his full name. That's what they call him.